Welcome back. I'm Connie Sokol, your host, and I am thrilled that we have back on our podcast this beautiful woman who is amazing and stellar in every way. If you have not listened to my other podcast with Ingrid Sorensen, you need to go back and listen to them because if you are a mother, grandmother, any of those kinds of nurturing roles, you want her scoops. She is amazing. Ingrid, welcome. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. Today we are talking about the do's and don'ts of raising and connecting with your adult children. Now, we don't really raise them anymore, right? But we are still connecting with them and we are still parents. And I don't know about you, but if you have adult children, you're probably going, I need help. Because as my sweet Ingrid had says to me in our private conversation, which is the product of now being able to do this podcast, is there's no manual. Like, what do you do with these adults? You have all these tips for the young children and the teenagers, but then adult children, what happens? It's a whole new ball game. So if you're in that situation, this podcast is for you. Now, just as a little background, if you don't know much about awesome Ingrid, I love, in fact, I'm going to lead with this exciting and the most signature piece about her, besides her amazingness on her own, is that she is the mother of 9 children, 9 people, 9 children, and she is sane and she is so down to earth as well as dynamic. It's incredible. And since she got married and started, having children young, she put her education on hold. And I am here to say, after 25 years, she just received her degree in experience design and management from the Marriott School of Business. Can we give it up for Ingrid? I'm so excited, seriously. And I'm shaking the hands in the studio. But I just am so impressed that she does all the things, but she is so down to earth about it. So if you have your questions, this is the time for you. And especially after this podcast, if you still have questions, we're going to let you know how you can get a hold of Ingrid so that you can continue to ask them. So today, sweet Ingrid, big introduction, but I wanted them to know how awesome you are. The 3 do's and don'ts for parenting adult children. Let's start with the do's. Let's start with the positives. Okay, you have these 9 children. Tell us the age range that you're dealing with right now.
Okay, my oldest is 30, and then I have 28, 25, 23, 21, 18, 15, 12, and 9.
So wow. Okay, you are shifting the gears. 30 down to 9. I have a 9-year-old. So my oldest is 21 and I know what it's like to shift those gears. And then you add on getting married and a house and mortgage and starting to have children, all of those things, like all of the things. So let's talk about the do's. We come off of this experience of we've been, maybe not helicopter parenting probably, but we're trying not to, but we've been coming off this. I have a stewardship over you until you're 18. And now that you're getting older and you're making your own decisions, now we're doing this 18 and beyond, but then we're still dealing with, they're still in the house a lot of times, right? So that they're being independent and yet they're still under our roof, which means we have certain ways that we feel the house needs to run and certain values that we want to perpetuate in there. So let's go to the do's. What's the number one do that you are sharing with us?
My number one do is to love and respect. So that obviously means just give freely of your love, give freely of your praise and your positive things that you could say to them and about them, building them up, showing your confidence in them, and then giving them respect too, in the sense that if they're now an adult, they have, the pink slip to their life, so to speak, and they, so maybe they consume entertainment that you wouldn't consume, or they spend time with people that you might not spend time with, or things like that. But barring anything going really far against your family and your household standards, I would say you just got to love and respect their person of who they are and their choices, even if that doesn't always line up with what you wish they would be doing. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. So let's get a little nitty gritty. How do you navigate? I've talked to different women and they have kids that want to do, what's the Fortnite or they want Call of Duty and they want to play these violent games. But then these women have children that are also a little bit younger, like 12, 13, whatever. And they don't want those games in the home, but the 18-year-old, 19-year-old is still there, maybe waiting to go to college, maybe waiting to, do other things. And there's that butting of the heads of that's not what we do in this home. How do you love and respect and still help them to love and respect what your values are? Like, how do you make those compromises with those value systems?
I think it would be very fair to say, hey, on the family gaming system, we have family appropriate games. And if there isn't a family gaming system, for example, I don't have a family gaming system in our home. But if my older child who was living in the home wanted to have their own system that they buy and pay for and that they do in their own room, I maybe would give some more leeway there. But I think that in our family culture, for example, movies and TV shows is something that we do have in our home. And the older kids know that they need to be watching family appropriate things if if like they're on the big family TV, right? If they're on their own laptop in their room, there's a little more leeway. But having little people walking in and out, they need to be respectful of the family rule of what's family appropriate. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
I love that. And I think that what I'm hearing from you is saying there are things we do in our family. There are things that are family appropriate. There are just these overarching things that make our home a place that you want to be. So I appreciate your respect of those things, and I will respect the fact that you are older and you don't need to have certain controls or things on the laptop or on the TV system, that you are older, and I trust you to make good decisions that will be a benefit to our home and our family while you're here. That's what I'm hearing. And I love that you say, that leeway of they can go in their room and if they want to watch something else, that's fine. I'm still hearing you say, that doesn't give you license to go look at porn, right? This is like we have family appropriate activities here and you know what's right and what's wrong. And I trust you to make that decision, make it wise. And if there is an issue, then it sounds like you're able to go back to that base. We're on the same page. This is leveling the playing field. This is what's family appropriate in our home. I love that line. Wonderful. What's the next thing?
The
Well, wait,
next
wait, wait. Let me back up. Have you had a personal experience? I mean, I know this is family and I want to be tender and careful about that so that there's no names or anything like that. But has there been an experience that you've had that's been pressed of having to figure out how to love and respect them when you're like, this is a no?
There has been. We have some grown children who have different living arrangements than we would consider family appropriate. And when they come to visit, we have to deal with that. So we have made clear our family standard about who's allowed to sleep where. And when family and people come with family to visit, then we're clear and we're firm about that. And we say, we love you and this is the family standard. And if you want to stay here with us when you come to visit, then this is the family standard you need to follow. And if you would prefer not to follow this family standard, you're welcome to get a hotel or stay elsewhere. Totally fine. And that's not going to change how much we love and interact and enjoy seeing you. If they were to choose to stay at a hotel and to stay instead of to stay in our home, then that's totally fine. And I think that's where love and respect really, like, the rubber hits the road, because if they did choose to stay in a hotel and not follow the family standard and stay in the home, that's 100% fine. And we love and we say, hey, we respect your adult life and your adult choices. And that's 100% up to you. Breakfast is at 8, lunch is at noon, dinner's at 6. We're going to go to the movies. We're going to go to the pool. We're going to go whatever family activities. And it's not excluding, but it's totally including, even though they've made an adult decision that's a little different than what you would otherwise wish they might have done.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. I've got goosebumps. That is so beautiful. And it's that follow up with increase of love. I love that. And it's a gentle, loving, firm boundary. And I love that. It reminds me of the movie Dan in Real Life, where it's, they come and they're like, oh yeah, it's old school rule. Mom and dad say, separate beds or whatever. And then one of them's like, hey, I like that rule, and they're like, okay, thanks. I think it's just so great that there's the safety and predictability of, even if they want to roll their eyes, they know that that's what's expected. And I love the fact that there's choice, that they can have that choice, and love is the follow-up. So have you had people stay at the house even with those rules?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
And
Love
one
it.
time there was little pushback. Come on, mom, it's no big deal. And I said, this is the family rule. And it could have got tense, there was pushback, but I just said, hey, the family rule, and I love you, and I'm so glad you're here. And if you don't want to follow the family rule, you're welcome to stay elsewhere, but this is the family rule.
I love
And
it.
and it simmered down, and the next day it was, you're right, mom, I know the family rule. I shouldn't have even tried to push back against you. I'm sorry. It was
I
fine.
love, and that's a testament to the fact that you did have that follow up and infusion of love, and that they know that. They really do know that. And it's not per person, it's the family rule. And I love that. So setting those family standards will help infuse that love and respect for everybody. Love. Okay, now let's move to the second point. Oh, so good. What's the second do?
Second do is to connect where they are, which to me means to find what it is that they love or what they're into, or um, wherever they are in their life, to connect with them there, because you do need to connect with them. That is a true principle across all parenting, no matter the age, in any relationship, not just a parent-child relationship, but a sibling to sibling, or friends, or grandparents, any relationship, there needs to be connecting. So find where they are and connect on that. They may not be interested in coming to, for example, like family spiritual activities, if their life is taking a path that's different than how you may have raised them. But they would be interested in going out for ice cream or going to the beach or something like that. So I say find where they will connect with you and connect on those things. And sometimes your path with your adult children will line up really, really well, and you'll go to education week together or something like that. But sometimes it's different. And so I say find what those common things are. And maybe it's not common. Maybe you find what their thing is. Hey, mom, I want to go to the skate park. I'm like, great. Well, I don't know how to skateboard, but I'll come watch you and take videos and brag on you on my social media and high five you and put a Band-Aid on your knee when you're falling down.
And not say I told you. Yeah,
Nope, don't
exactly.
say that.
I love this. And getting outside of ourselves and our expectations of what we think they should be doing or what we think would be the best thing for them. There's 1,000 ways to work their lives, and they've got their journey to take. And I'm learning that too. And I love that connect where they are, where my daughter is working at a place, and that they drink beverages that I don't drink. But I went there, and I just embraced. I had to shift my gear, and I had to just embrace, you know what? There's lots of different places she can work, a lot of different ways that she can do her life. And I've just come and gotten a bagel and cream cheese, and it's been great. And it's a lovely, lovely environment. And it's been great because that's a part of her life. She loves that vibe. She loves the atmosphere. She loves what's going on there. And we would cut ourselves off from that connection. Doesn't mean I'm, doing things that she would be doing. Just means I'm there to love and tell her, wow, I love that you're finding your way. So I love this. Connect where they are. And I love that you say, this is what I can do. And I think that's another phrase. This is what I can do. I can come and support. I can take the videos. I can come and get a bagel. I can come into the drive-through and wave hi to you and say, I love you, right? We can find the pieces that we can connect on. I love that. Has there been any experience particularly that, I mean, you did the skate part, but anything that you were like, I really am struggling to connect with this child on any areas? Has there been anything like that that you're like, you really had to dig down deep and be like, okay, I've had to find my way here?
There has. I can think of a few different things, and some of them are a little hard to share without giving away too much
Oh,
information. Or
sure.
my kid might
Sure.
go, hey, mom.
Hey, what the heck?
So this is the love and respect, right? To not out them on your podcast.
Exactly.
But not that my kids are terrible or
They're
anything. That's not what
awesome.
I'm trying to imply. But it's there's a certain activity that one of my kids likes to do and asks to do with me. And I need to translate, hey, mom, we should blank, into, hey, mom, I want to spend time with you.
Yes.
because sometimes I just hear it as, hey, mom, here's another to-do list thing that you should take 3 hours out of your day and figure out a way to make time for that. And sometimes I push back on that, right? And go, I don't have time to do that thing. But if they are asking me to do that thing, it is code, right? It's teenager or young adult code for, I want to hang out with you, mom, and here's something we can do together. You need to remember that and make the time.
Oh, I love that. And that valuing and carving out that time is so key. I just had that with my little 9-year-old who was like going to the swim park, usually with his friends. He's like, Mom, can it just be you and I today? And, I mean, that's not sitting by the poolside reading a book and saying, Hey, honey, want a snack? It's I'm chasing him in the lazy river and I'm playing and I'm jumping off the diving board and the things that we kind of as adults, we don't really want to do. So translating that to adult children, that could be these things that we just don't really feel. I don't want to go to a concert. I don't want to go to these things. It's loud. It's like, I'm old lady. It's past my bedtime, right? But these things that are important to them, that you're right, finding that common ground and being able to connect where they are right now and saying, when I think in that reverse, where they're saying, hey, will you do this with me? What, and I want you to spend time with me. What we're saying in return is, I value you and I don't really care what that thing is. I value you and we'll make that work. So kudos to you. Beautiful. Okay. What's the last do?
The last thing is to invite and include. And this is one where I need to take my own advice because I am not very good at this. There may be like our family gets invited to an extended family event or something, and I forget to tell my kids who don't live at home about this event. And then later they're like, Mom, there was a wedding, I didn't know, or, things like that. I usually would not forget to tell them about a wedding, but for example, something like that. So I have had to remind myself to make sure to let everybody know, because I have 4 kids who don't live in the home anymore, 4 adult children who have moved out. 3 of them are local, and I mean really local,
Wow.
that could be included in family things. And it's hard just to remember, as I'm juggling 8,000 details, it's hard to remember to invite and include them. So I started a group text for me and the kids who don't live in the home, but who are really local, which is different than the other group text, which is with all the adult kids, because one lives out of
Right.
state and wouldn't be able to come to a lot of family things, or telling them, hey, we have a family project, come participate, we'll go get ice cream afterward, for example. This person who's out of state is not going to come. So
Right.
anyway,
Right.
but I just started this local group text with my adult kids to make sure they know. So when I can say Sunday dinner is at 5:00, it's easy to just send out one text and I know they're all getting it. And hopefully we're doing better at this communication, but just to be sure that they're included in family news, like somebody got a new car, or somebody came home with a straight A report card, or somebody got hurt on the skateboard and had to go to the Instacare. Just make sure to include them in the family news so that then they know and they're not going, wait, what happened? I didn't know anything about it. I've heard that phrase so many times over the last few years and I need to do better. So I put that third one on there for me.
Oh, I love it. And let me just say, she does a stellar job. She's going to get sick of me giving her like this sort of tribute thing. But the truth is, like, she's stellar. The sticky notes on the fridge are just out of control. They're so amazing. And I learn something every time I go to her house. And she does it with such calm and is like low key about it. Like whatever, this is just what I do. But I love that, because I would not have thought of that either, that inviting and including and making sure they have choice. I'd be thinking, well, they are busy, right? They've got lots going on in their lives. They don't want to probably feel like they have to, or like, it's something that we're asking them to do or whatever. But I love that. You're giving them the opportunity. And by giving them that invitation, you're keeping them included in the family things. And I love those details, the skate, accident or whatever, because those are the details that keep you feeling like the breadcrumbs of family life, and you don't get too disconnected living your own big adult life. I think all of us, even when I'm sure you can relate, when you're in college or when you're gone from your family home, you still yearn for those anchor points, those grounding feelings that you've had, that you really want to stay connected to what's going on and what that does, what that means to you. So I love that. These are amazing dudes. For those that are just joining us, I'm just going to recap super fast before we go to the don'ts. It's love and respect, connect where they are, and invite and include. And absolutely fantastic tips. Let's shift gears for a minute. Oh, well, before we do that, let me just say, I tend to want to move to the next thing because I'm so excited, but I'm trying to be better at just like grounding down. How do you feel these do's have influenced your family for good? As you have practiced these to, the best you can and doing bits here and there, what kind of outcomes have you seen? What has this done for your relationship with your adult children?
I think that it keeps the relationship active and flourishing. I think that if I don't invite and include, I see things take a nosedive way too fast, and there's hurt feelings. Mom, you didn't tell me about the whatever.
The barbecue, whatever.
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I just forgot. There's 8 million details. And despite having a 30-year-old and a bunch of kids in their 20s, I'm not a pro at adult children yet. I'll get it by the time grandkids come along. Well,
Hoping
I'll
for
be
our
overwhelmed, or then I'll be overwhelmed with 2 sets of things I need to do better on. Um, but it keeps the relationship active and healthy. And it's easy to let things that aren't right in front of you all the time fall out of your sight, right? Sometimes we're like, well, there's the dirty dishes, and there's the bills that I need to pay, and there's the kid who's whining at me right now. These are the things I need to deal with today. And this grown child who lives a mile away isn't in your face, but they are still important, and they still need you in a different new way. But
Yes.
it's still a relationship, and you want it to be active, and you want it to be healthy, and you want it to be a thriving, flourishing, beautiful friendship, which adult children can take on in this new role and become your friend in a way that they didn't and couldn't as a younger child. So it's a whole new world, and it's super fun to have adult kids who are your friends that you want to hang out with, and you want to do, you go shopping, or you do yoga, or these are, some things that I do with my grown kids that we really enjoy, or we'll read the same book and we'll talk about it, or there's so much potential. And I think doing these little things helps to enable that potential to happen.
Oh my gosh, I love it. In fact, it just made me think about plants. You're growing these plants, and I have these 7 flower pots that need watering every day. So you better believe that's the one that's on my radar, right? Is these 7 flower pots. I paid good money for them, and I'm keeping them alive. But then there's the other plants and the shrubs and the things like that that still need the care, that still need, to come out and trim and weed and make sure things are taken care of. But it's not as much on my radar. But you're right, putting that on those reminders or putting little things so that you can remember to keep those touch points, that's huge. And then it yields those dividends. Last night, I have some people visiting that are disciple thought leaders in my circle, and we want to go play pickleball. My daughter is 21. She's right there. She's like, oh, I'd love to play. And I was like, duh. Like, I didn't even think, invite her to come play, because I'm thinking we're all old ladies. What is she going to want to be with us? Right. But she did. And she came, and we had a ball, and they connected with her and love her. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fulfilling. It's so nourishing to have these experiences. So you're right, keeping that on the radar and keeping that active sidebar. You're right. It's not right in front of you, but it is a sidebar, and keeping that going, keeping that humming. Love. All right, let's visually switch the gears now to the don'ts, which has that positive ring to it still, because it's helping us to eliminate stress and eliminate hurt feelings by not doing certain things. And I can totally get behind that. Start us off with your number one don't.
Okay, first I have to say, as a prequel to this section, that when you asked me to talk about parenting adult children, I thought, Connie, this is going to be a really short podcast, because my philosophy on parenting adult children is one word, and that is don't. As in, don't butt into their lives, don't tell them what to do, don't be nosy and overbearing, just don't. Just be their friend when they're older. And I thought back and thought, well, she must think I have something worth saying, so I probably ought to elaborate a little bit. But it's the same philosophy as potty training. People would ask me, how do you potty train? I said, don't stress over it. When they're ready, it's overnight. It's like done, and no accidents, no mess, no tears. It's fantastic. Just don't potty train. So don't parent your adult kids. That's
I love it. There's the podcast right there. Just don't. And we're solid.
But in the interest of having 3 balancing points, here's number 1. Don't judge and criticize. back to the point that I said before, that they kind of have the pink slip to their life. And if they buy a kind of car you wouldn't recommend, or they, whatever lifestyle choices that they make, big, small, and all the ones in between, our job is to love them. And to speak to the point that I made a minute ago about how they kind of become your friends in a whole new way when they're adults. I think there's a lot to appreciate there. And if we let our judgment and criticism of the way they're living their life become the focal point, we will miss out on the really rich friendship. Because we have all kinds of friends in our lives who make different choices than we make. Maybe we have a friend who does different things on the weekend than we would do, who observes their spirituality in a different way than we would do. Maybe someone's vegetarian, maybe someone's a different political party, right? We have friends across all kinds of lifestyles. And if we were to be judgy and critical of them in every way that we think they should be doing something different, we wouldn't have any friends left. So I think it's important to remember that with our children too. Be really accepting and keep the judgment out.
So I love that. And I think that's probably the hardest thing for parents to do because we feel like it's helpful, right? We're judging instead of we think we're giving advice, or we think that we're being helpful, or we think that we're seeing something and preventing them from some kind of stress down the road. And instead it just comes off of you're just judging or criticizing me or whatever. Have you had an experience with that where you did judge or criticize and then you came back and realized that that wasn't probably the best thing to do and then righted it? Or have you had an experience where you're like, I just didn't say anything and it actually turned out to be a positive?
I've probably had 10 experiences on both of those. I can't think of anything coming to mind right away. Again, that's not like giving too much information and airing our family dirty laundry, but it's like in the kind of car, like someone maybe buys a car and you think it's more of a car than they can afford. And you're like, I don't know, if I was your age, I wouldn't buy a car like that. I wouldn't get a loan that big. I wouldn't, whatever, but it's not our job. If they say, hey, mom, I'm thinking of these two cars. There's this one I could buy with cash and this one I would buy with a loan. What do you think? Then I can say, and we did have this experience recently, I would think that at your age, taking on a loan when you do have the option to buy a car for cash would not be the wisest of the two choices. I would recommend buying the car with cash. And then if you want to upgrade to a more expensive car in the future, save money on the side. Your job is enabling that option. You've got a good job and you are good with your money management. Save money on the side until you can add to the cost. So then you could buy another car. You know what I mean? I was just like, I gave my advice, but because I was asked for it.
Right. And it sounds like the initial thing, and what you're saying is initially, our job as for parents with adult children is to say, great, how does it make you feel? Are you happy about that? Are you excited about your purchase? Are you feeling happy about that job? How does it feel? Right. And as we just ask them how they feel, then we can just validate that's your awesome, happy feeling. And I'm so happy for you that you feel that way. But we're not saying I'm condoning that choice. And I'm saying, wow, that is the right, best way to do it, because they're not asking your advice. They're just excited about X, Y, or Z. And you just get to say, wow, that's awesome. How does that feel? Because then otherwise, like you said, we're getting into advice. Then we're getting into and you got some points on that, but then we're getting into a whole different path. And like you're saying, that's not what they want. They just want someone to cheer them on and say, I get that you're starting this new path of adult living and you're doing great. And if you see something really majorly wrong, well, that's a different conversation, but it's just, you're doing great. I look back to how many things that we did. You think about your own path. Well, you were amazing, but starting on your adult path and you're like making mistakes left and right and you're figuring out so much. And really, you just want someone to say, good job. Good job, right? Because you're aware when you've made a mistake. You can feel that you didn't do it right or that was a dumb way to do it. You just want to hear good job. I love that. All right. What's the second point that you have? The second don't?
The second don't is don't rescue them from hardship or consequences. So if they find themselves upside down in their car loan and owe more than their car is worth, that's a hard thing that they get to face and figure out on their own by virtue of being an adult. And we've all had to do similar things as we figured out being an adult, and we're still figuring out being adults because life's always changing. Dynamics of life are always changing. So if something comes along that's difficult, we stand back. Like you said, I love how you say, just cheerlead for them and ask them how things are going and how's that working out. And, a kind offer of like, hey, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. That is a very, I think, safe feeling way to invite kids to come to you for advice. If you say, hey, if you want my opinion on it, let me know, they might be like, no thanks. But if you say, hey, I'm here, if you ever want to talk, that opens the door.
I love that. And I think, and we're going to talk about advice a little bit more in a second, but I love that you're kind of removing yourself from taking the responsibility for their choices. And if, say, they got the car loan, you're like, well, how does that make you feel? And they're like, I'm so excited. And you're like, I have some thoughts on it if you want to hear it. And they don't, then they're moving on. And then boom, they get behind on it. They come to you. I love that you're not like, oh my gosh, first of all, not like I told you so, which is the bane of any relationship. So you're not saying I told you so if you would have listened to me, right? We don't want to hear that. But the second thing is being able to say, how do you want to solve that? Like, what's your plan on that, right? And that's what I'm hearing you say is putting that back on them and being able to say, instead of judgment, criticizing, anything like that, just being able to say, well, what do you want to do from here? What do you think is the best way to work it? And that I trust you. I trust you to find that solution. I trust that you're going to figure that out because you're so capable and you're so capable. You understand the basic concepts of what needs to happen in life. I know you've got this, and that's part of the learning journey. That's a hard thing as a parent to say. Have you had an experience where someone has kind of gotten in their oxes in the mire and you've been like, either they've wanted you to help them rescue or you've felt to rescue, but you've had to just set a positive, clear boundary? Any thoughts on that? Again, without giving away too much.
Yeah. I went with my daughter to look at an apartment she was going to move into. She said, come with me, see the apartment. I looked at it.
First of all, I love that she invited you. And that just speaks volumes for how much this is working in your life with your adult children. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for recognizing that. I should pause and recognize that too. Like, oh, she invited me. She was excited. She was interested to include me. That's a huge blessing. So she invited me to come with her. I had a lot of thoughts. She was excited about the apartment, so I just shared in her excitement and didn't share my other thoughts.
In the moment, right?
Right. And I did advise like, hey, make sure you look at a few places so you know what's out there, and she looked at a couple, but not very many. And not that there's a right or wrong thing there, but not long after she did choose this apartment and moved in, she's coming to me with kind of complaints or problems that I totally saw in that moment, right? Like, your roommate is a slob. I'm like, oh, you're going to move in here. This place is so messy. I don't know how you're going to stand it because this daughter is super neat and tidy. But I didn't say anything. And now she's like, Mom, I can't stand it. She never cleans out the bathtub. She never puts away her stuff in the bathroom. She never does the dishes. The dishes will sit there for days or more. She doesn't put things away ever. She's going crazy. And I'm like, dang, that's rough. That's so hard.
Oh, awesome validation. Oh my gosh.
Just validate, and if she's like, I don't even know what to do, I've offered a couple gentle tips, and she's like, I don't think that would work or whatever. But anyway, it's a short lease, and maybe she'll change her mind and move somewhere else when this lease is over. But right now she knows more of what to look for on the next apartment. And if I was in there making all the decisions for her and being like, no, let me pick your apartment, I know better, she wouldn't learn this lesson of like, oh, observe what the apartment looks like to know if you have a tidy roommate or a messy roommate, if that's a game changer for you or a deal breaker for you. Because for some people, they don't care, but some people do care. And they may want a certain living situation. So now she knows. Lesson learned, and I didn't have to say anything.
Oh, I love, and there you go. That's the listen and the zip it. Just zip it. I love that. And you're exactly right, because what we want and hope for them is to learn the principles. We were playing pickleball the other night, and you can kind of tend to keep doing a paddle backwards just because it's easier than doing a backhand. And I remember thinking, no, I want to work the fundamentals. I'm not going to focus on the point, because if I work the fundamentals, then I'll have good habits and the points will come. But if I just focus on getting a point, I'm going to get into bad habits and I'm not going to be able to count on that. And that's so much of what you're saying is what I'm hearing. We are wanting them to learn principles. And one of those principles is observation and decision making, so that when she goes into a job environment or job interview, she's going to have that skill. I'm observing what this person is doing and who they are and what this environment is, more than just what they're saying. And I'm going to be able to see, does this work for me or does it not? And I'll be able to make a clearer assessment at the very beginning, whether it's a job or a house or a person that I'm going to marry or whatever. I love that you can see that that's the more important thing. It's the principle versus the immediate apartment situation, and not thinking I want to spare them immediate pain that will, preempt them having that long-term learning. I love that. So fantastic, which leads us naturally. All roads lead to this last point. What is the last don't?
You're exactly right. The last don't is don't offer unsolicited advice. This
Ah,
has kind of worked its way in. It's worked its way into all the other things we've talked about, because I think it is the parents' natural tendency. Because as a very young child, when we're young parents and we're learning how to be a parent with an infant and a toddler, we're all about the unsolicited advice. It's our job. Don't run in the street. Put your shoes on. Wear a coat. Eat your vegetables. It's our job to teach them and train them. And they're not asking for advice. They can't talk yet. It's our job. But we form that paradigm that it's our job to tell them everything they should and shouldn't do when they're little. But that's not a hard and fast rule that stays true forever. So we have to shift our paradigm from teach, 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 tell them everything, to listen, observe, hug them when they fall down, mourn with them when they make a really bad decision, and comfort them, but don't dish it out all the time.
I love that. Have cookies at the hand. I think that's why we always have some kind of cake, right? Because it's just what that can't solve. Come on, right? I love this, and to me, it just feels like that. Validate, don't vote. Don't say, "Here's what you should do," or "Wow, this is my opinion on what it was." It's just validating, and that's Gary and Joy Lundberg in their "I Don't Have to Make Everything All Better" book, which is a Bible for parenting, right? Which is being able to say, validate, listen, 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 and validate, right? That is validation. You listen, 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 and you let them understand and feel heard, and let them know that you are sitting with them in their moment, but you're not going to tell them how to do it. And I love how you said earlier, we can ask them, well, I have some thoughts about this if you're interested. Or, well, I do have some opinions and I'd love to share them if you want to know them. But we just leave it, and there's no guilt, there's no agenda attached to it. You're just going to validate them in their moment. And I love that. Mourn with them, grieve with them, whatever it is with them. And you know that you can sit with them. I love that. Have you had any experiences where you felt like that was the best thing to do, was mourning with them, or being able to just sit with it, even though inside you were probably really frustrated about the impact that that choice had made on them, or even on you and your family, but you were still able to take yourself out of it and still sit with that person and just be with them? Have you had anything like that?
So many times. So many times. So many times. And I can think of one time, there's a lot of times relationship things come to mind, car buying choices, places to live, some of these adult decisions, right? Jobs, jobs that you accept or that you turn down, that may have been fruitful. That it happens a lot. But it is really liberating as a parent too, to let your child carry their own adulthood, and not to feel like you have to carry all the stress of their adult life.
Mm.
Because man, no wonder grandparents are hunched over, right? They're carrying all the stress of their adult kids and their grandkids. Just don't let that be on you. That can be on them. I can think, though, I think it's worth bringing up. There is one incident that comes to mind where I broke this rule, and I think it was the right time to break this rule.
Ooh,
Where I did have a child in a relationship situation, and I said, hey, I know you didn't ask my opinion on this situation, but I feel like I'd be a bad mom, a neglectful mom, if I didn't offer this opinion in this situation. So please hear me out. I'll be short. I love you. Here's my opinion. This is not a good situation. And I said, however, you will never hear another word from me on this subject. And if you choose to continue this relationship, you will have my 100% support.
oh, that's beautiful.
And the child in question was angry with me for sharing that opinion because it was contrary to what they were hoping, for. But true to my word, I never did say another word about it. Years down the line, this child acknowledged that my opinion was not only valid, but spot on, and came to me later and said, I should have listened to you, Mom.
Wow.
You were right. And I didn't say, I told you so.
Right.
I was thinking it in my head, but it's not my life. It's not my life, and it's not my decision, but I did break that rule. And I'm sure I break it, in smaller ways all the time. However, but that was a biggie where I was like, no, I am going to break the rule. This is something worth saying. And I never brought it up again. But later, this child came to me and said, Mom, you were right. And the nice thing is that our relationship is still beautiful, largely because I didn't bring it up again. And I didn't say I told you so. And I think those things made it so that I was trustworthy.
Yes.
Because now I have one of the most beautiful parent-child relationships with this adult child, and they feel like they can trust me,
Yes.
which is huge.
Long term.
Priceless.
And you're so smart. It's all building the long-term benefits, the long-term payoff, and not doing the immediate, getting the satisfaction of, I'm going to tell you because you're going to make a bad mistake, of just trusting them so they can trust you. And I love, and the feeling that I get from what you're saying is you had concern for her emotional well-being, for her safety and well-being. And without, I'm just saying, when we as moms, I think that's part of our stewardship, is that it's not just gee, I think you should get a different car. In those moments when we feel like there is a very deep concern here for your well-being or safety or whatever it might be, then I feel it is wise to give choice, because that's what you're doing. You're giving choice. You're not saying you should follow this, and if you don't, I'm going to withdraw love. You're saying, I'm giving you another perspective for you to choose from that you may not be seeing. And you're right. If you had not said anything, that child probably would have come back later and said, why didn't you say something? Because you're smarter and you knew. And that's not okay that you didn't say something, even if I would have been mad at you, because that's childhood. That's parenting, right? It's the whole thing is you're giving choice all the time. And they're like, I don't want to hear it. And then they finally go, okay, yeah, some of that was actually pretty good. So I love that you felt that to your soul. And I love that you kept that commitment. And like you said, that is the thing that built the trust, that said, I get that she will share her opinion, but she will let it be. And she will let me make my own decision, no matter how long that takes. That's gold, Ingrid. That is parenting gold. And I think, in all honesty, I'm glad that we're kind of wrapping up with that piece, because I think that's the ultimate. When we can secure the trust and respect of our children that way, they may not agree with what we say, but they trust us and they respect what we do feel strongly is truth, that I think we have done what we needed to do as parents. It really isn't about the outcome of what they ultimately choose. It's that relationship of trust and respect, because that's the foundation of love, right? That true loving relationship. Ingrid, I've been between goosebumps and tears and laughter. This has been incredible. People listening are going to be like, how can I sit at her feet? Like, how can I get more of these pearls of wisdom? Where can they go to find you and reach you?
I am on Instagram. And I'm on Facebook. So if anybody ever wants to ask a question or anything, reach out. I think my account on Instagram is like private, but if you're like, hey, I heard you on Connie's podcast, you're a friend. So join
Love,
in.
love.
It's
And it's
Ingrid with
Ingrid
a J in the middle. Ingrid J. Sorensen.
with an EN. So Ingrid
E-N.
J. Sorensen with an EN. And so fantastic. And if you can't find your way, you just go to connieslocal.com, contact me, and I'll put you right in touch with her. Thank you so much for sharing these beauties. Just as wrap up for people who may not have just popped on, we talked about the 3 do's and don'ts. And some of the highlights for me is what we do in our family or what is family appropriate for us, set those standards, and then asking things of where you can find common ground, be their friend. This is a time that you can actually be their friend and less of a parent. And then validate, 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 and don't advise, but just say, I have some thoughts and ideas I want to share with you. If you're just joining us, I invite you to go back and listen, get your pen ready, get a notebook, because there's groovy, juicy nuggets for you to take. And as always, thank you so much, Ingrid, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Connie. It's always a
So
treat.
wonderful. I learned so many things. I'm excited, and my kids will be excited. My adult kids will be excited for me to practice these. As always, if you loved this podcast, please go below and rate, review, and subscribe. And if you want any beautiful things of finding your purpose, being able to do your organization, getting purpose in your life, being able to be an influential writer, speaker, and media personality, check out our freebies, our downloads, our retreat information. We would love to connect with you and help you to take the next step in living your purposeful, organized, and joyful life.